Welcome back to the I Ching reading. This is number 78, a companion video for number 77. And the question I asked is, please describe the outcome of interaction with this woman. Please describe the outcome of interaction with this woman. Like, essentially, please describe the outcome of interaction if I were to get in contact and have some form of interaction with this person. So, without further ado, number 78, and the first hexagram is number 61, Inner Truth, and the second is number 52, Keeping Still Mountain. So if you'd like to relax and just take a few deep breaths, I'll get right into it. The wind blows over the lake and stirs the surface of the waters. The upper trigram is the gentle wind, and the lower is the joyous lake. The visible effects of the invisible manifest themselves. The hexagram consists of firm lines above and below, while it is open in the center. This indicates a heart that is free of prejudice, and therefore is open to truth. On the other hand, each of the two trigrams has a firm line in the middle. This indicates the force of inner truth and the influences they represent. The attributes of the two trigrams are the top trigram, gentleness, forbearance toward inferiors, and below, joyousness and obeying superiors. Such conditions create a basis of a mutual confidence that makes achievements possible. The character Fu, truth, is actually the picture of a bird's foot over a fledgling, over a little baby bird. It suggests the idea of brooding. An egg is hollow. The light-giving power must work to quicken it from outside. But there must be a germ of life within, if life is to be awakened. And far-reaching speculations can be linked with these ideas. So for me, the idea of, well, is there a germ of life within the possible interaction with this woman and me? I think there is, and there could be. I certainly felt a strong magnetism. I think she did too. The judgment, inner truth, pigs and fishes, good fortune. It furthers one to cross the great water. Perseverance furthers. Pigs and fishes are the least intelligent of all animals. Sorry, you pigs and fishes, and therefore the most difficult to influence. The force of inner truth must grow great indeed before its influence can extend to such creatures. In dealing with persons as stubborn and as difficult to influence as a pig or a fish, the whole secret of success depends on finding the right way of approach. A person must first of all rid themselves of all prejudice and, so to speak, let the psyche of the other person act on them without restraint. Then one will establish contact with that person, understand and gain power over them. When a door has thus been opened, the force of one's personality will influence the other person. And if in this way a person finds no obstacles insurmountable, one can undertake even the most dangerous enterprises, such as crossing the great water, and succeed. So essentially, it's asking a question. Are you dealing with someone who's stubborn and difficult like a pig or a fish? Or am I being stubborn and difficult like a pig or a fish? And am I able to find the right way of approach and rid myself of all prejudice and let the psyche, the character of the other person, work on me without restraint? It's important to understand upon what the force of inner truth depends. Inner truth is not identical with simple intimacy or a secret bond. So here we have the idea that inner truth is much deeper than just a secret bond or an intimacy. Close ties may exist also among thieves. It is true that such a bond acts as a force, but since it is not invincible, it does not bring good fortune. So the bond between thieves or a simple intimacy, a secret bond, that type of thing, is not something that's invincible. It doesn't have lasting power. So the question, does this have inner truth? Does this have lasting power between this woman and me? All good things to contemplate. For all associations on the basis of common interests, oh, I like this music, oh, I like this, I like that, only hold up to a certain point. So common interests, although very much touted by the media and by dating gurus and so forth as being important, will only hold people together to a certain point. And where the community of interest ceases, the holding together ceases also. So where your community of interest, where your similarities of interest diverge from one another, there also your holding together diverges. And the closest friendship or relationships often change into hate. How many of us have experienced that? Only when the bond is based on what is right, on steadfastness. Steadfastness being doing what is right consistently. Only when the bond is based on what is right, on steadfastness, will the bond remain so firm that it triumphs over everything. So that really is the question. Is this bond, this connection with this woman, based on what is right, on steadfastness, on consistently doing what is right? The image, wind over lake, the image of inner truth. Thus, the superior person discusses criminal cases in order to delay executions. Wind stirs water by penetrating it. Thus, the superior person, when obliged to judge the mistakes of others, tries to penetrate their minds with understanding in order to gain a sympathetic appreciation of the circumstances. In ancient China, the entire administration of justice was guided by this principle. A deep understanding that knows how to pardon was considered the highest form of justice. This system was not without success, for its aim was to make so strong a moral impression that there was no reason to fear abuse of such mildness. For it sprang not from weakness, but from a superior clarity. So this information really helped to throw me back to my inner landscape and ask myself, well, what really is this connection based on? Is it based on something that's lasting and steadfast? Let me think about this. And also, because I felt in the initial 2019 interaction, at the end of the interaction, fairly judged, because she, as a counselor, had said, you need to work on these things. Totally valid, but I didn't want to get into a situation where I always felt like I had to perpetually go through massive transformations all over and over again. And I wanted to be accepted, of course. So I think maybe that created a little bit of resentment for me toward her. So the idea of offering a pardon seems relevant in this particular situation. For certain, I could practice forgiving her for that. And that could lead to success, because this is not coming from a place of weakness, but from superior clarity. So that could be a relevant point in the process. Whether or not I chose to move forward and interact with this woman or not, it could still be a relevant thing for me to undertake. So the changing lines are very interesting, and here we go. The first changing line is the 9 at the beginning. Being prepared brings good fortune. If there are secret designs, it is disquieting. The force of inner truth depends chiefly on inner stability and being prepared. From this state of mind springs the correct attitude toward the outer world and toward others. But if a person should try to cultivate secret relationships of a special sort, it would deprive this person of their own inner independence. The more reliance a person places on the support of others, the more uneasy and anxious they will become as to whether these secret ties are really sustainable. In this way, inner peace and the force of inner truth are lost. This brought up the previous interaction from 2019, this particular paragraph, because I felt a very strong sense of my well-being was dependent upon hearing from this woman, text messages or phone calls and so forth. And I felt fairly obsessed and not in a balanced or healthy place because of that factor. And it did trouble me, and it gave me a lot of confusion in terms of, why am I feeling this way? Why is this so strong in me, particularly in this interaction with this particular woman? So I think this paragraph helped me to understand that. And as I began to, back in 2019, began to understand that this was not feeling like a good thing to me, I asked for her birth information, and I compared the two birth charts, and I found out that her planet Pluto was conjunct my moon. Well, Pluto is like Mars. If you know anything about astrology, Mars is a very passionate or intense planet, brings a lot of intensity wherever it aspects another planet. And Pluto is like Mars. Pluto is like Mars on steroids. I've heard it said that way. It's a good way of saying it. Or you could say the energy of Mars is like squared with Pluto, very intense. And so when Pluto is very, very close to someone's moon, which is your emotional well-being, your emotional expression, then that can bring a lot of intensity to the moon person's emotional feelings, which is good, can be very good for passion and sexual attraction, wonderful, but it can also create what they talked about, a tendency toward the moon person being obsessed, of not being able to get the other person out of their mind. And that's something that I truly experienced, and it was confusing and it was disabling because it really kind of took over my life in a certain respect. And this helped me to understand this. So this paragraph really chimes in on that particular experience, because I was relying on the support of others, as the paragraph describes. And as I relied on the support of others, I became more uneasy and anxious. And I definitely wondered whether this situation was sustainable, because I was losing my inner peace and my inner truth as well. So that was very, very helpful and relevant. The second changing line is the 9 in the second place. A crane calling in the shade. Its young answers it. I have a good goblet. I will share it with you. This refers to the involuntary influence of a person's inner being upon persons who are kindred spirits. The crane does not need to show itself on a high hill. The crane may be quite hidden when it sounds its call, yet its young will hear its noise or its call, and the young cranes will recognize it and give answer. Where there is a joyous mood, there a comrade will appear to share a glass of wine. Okay, so everything is connected. Your inner being is having an effect upon persons of kindred spirit. Even if you're not seen, like the crane, these energies are being transmitted and they're being received. This is the echo awakened in humans through spiritual attraction. Whenever a feeling is voiced with truth and frankness, whenever a deed is the clear expression of sentiment, a mysterious and far-reaching influence is exerted. At first, it acts on those who are inwardly receptive, but the circle grows larger and larger. The root of all influence lies in one's own inner being. That deserves a repetition. The root of all influence lies in one's own inner being. Given true and vigorous expression in word and deed, its effect is great. So it talks about all influence being in your own inner being, and words and deeds create these strong effects. The effect is but the reflection of something that emanates from within one's own heart. Any deliberate intention of a particular effect will only destroy the possibility of producing that effect. So this talks about the importance of where are you at in your inner being? Are you putting out words and deeds that are having positive effects? Is the sentiment of your heart, this mysterious and far-reaching influence, being exerted in a way that is positive? The superior person abides in their room. This is Confucius speaking. The superior person, and he's talking about this particular changing line in this hexagram. The superior person abides in his or her room. If the superior person's words are well spoken, they meet with agreement at a distance of more than 1,000 miles. How much more then from nearby? Let me just translate this for you. So Confucius is essentially saying that if your words are well spoken and you're just hanging out in your room, then your words will travel out over 1,000 miles and meet with agreement. They will meet with a wonderful agreement, and they will be very far-reaching. And how much more will they have effect and power at closer distances, essentially is what it's saying. So you're going to have this spread of influence for well over 1,000 miles. Probably the spread is even further than that, probably the whole world or the universe. But if you're attentive to this, you have to then fashion your words and your ideas to help create the influence that you want to receive back. If the superior person abides in their room and their words are not well spoken, and I suppose you could say that their thoughts are not well thought out, they meet with contradiction at a distance of more than 1,000 miles. How much more then from nearby? Okay, so again, the same idea, just reversed. So if you're not forming your ideas or your words in a way that are well spoken, are not well spoken, then you're going to have disagreement, contradiction at a distance of more than 1,000 miles. Okay, and this, if there are people closer to you than 1,000 miles, okay, you're going to have an even stronger effect on them. People that are within your house or within your city or within your state, although that may be many miles away, you're still having this profound influence by your thoughts and your words. Words go forth from one's own person, and they exert their influence on other human beings. Deeds are born close at hand and become visible far away. Words and deeds are the hinge and the bowstring of the superior person. As hinge and bowstring move, we're thinking about bows and arrows here, and not the arrows so much as the bow. As the hinge and the bowstring move, they bring honor or disgrace. Through words and deeds, the superior person moves heaven and earth. Must one not then be cautious? So this really helps a person reflect upon the metaphysical aspects of the inner being and the words and deeds and even the thoughts that are traveling out well beyond 1,000 miles, and how the effect is profound, and whether it's bringing good or not so good effects, or desirable or not so desirable effects. So this certainly gave me pause to reflect upon the internal inner being and its influence, its profound influence upon others, and what type of mood or influence I am broadcasting toward this particular woman. And if this is an echo that will come back in a way that could be positive or not so positive. What will be awakened through this influence that I am constantly projecting through my inner being, as are all beings doing this? Is the spiritual attraction between us something that holds inner truth, or is it just a passing thing? So the next changing line is the 6 in the third place. 6 in the third place. He finds a comrade. Now he beats the drum. Now he stops. Now he sobs. Now he sings. Here the source of a person's strength lies not in themselves, but in their relationship to other people. No matter how close to them this person may be, if this person's center of gravity depends on others, they are inevitably tossed to and fro between joy and sorrow, rejoicing to high heaven, then sad unto death. This is the fate of those who depend upon an inner accord or agreement with other persons whom they love. Here we have only the statement of the law that this is so. Whether this condition is felt to be an affliction, a sorrow, or a negativity, or the supreme happiness of love, this is left to the subjective verdict of the person concerned. And that person concerned, of course, is me. I'm the one asking the question. And this definitely chimes into the idea of me putting too much emphasis on that happiness that could come from the interaction with another person. Of my strength lying not in myself, but in my relationship to other people. And of course, in the interaction of 2019 with this woman and my feelings of obsession with her, okay, this definitely chimes in and resonates with that of my strength not lying within myself, but in my relationship to other people. And also, I love this terminology that no matter how close I may be to this other person, or feel that I am to this other person, if my center of gravity depends on this other person, I will inevitably be tossed to and fro between joy and sorrow. And that's essentially kind of what obsession is, isn't it? You feel like there's something really strong there with the obsession, the obsessive energy. Oh my God, this must be love. But then you don't feel good because you can't really do much of anything else but think about that particular situation or person. And so my center of gravity was not depending on my own strength within myself. I wasn't in that center of gravity within myself. My center of gravity depended on the interaction with this other person. Well, okay, very, very profound insights here. And in my case, I would have to answer that the verdict for me, the person that's concerned with this idea, is that what I experienced in that initial interaction in my own being was a loss of my center of gravity, a loss of my source of my inner strength, my inner truth. And this became a sort of suffering, a form of suffering and affliction, rather than a supreme happiness of love. And the final changing line, the 9 in the 5th place, means he possesses truth, which links together no blame. This describes a ruler who holds all elements together by the power of their personality. Only when the strength of their character, of this ruler's character, is so ample and sufficient that this ruler can influence all who are subject to them, is the ruler as they need to be. The power of suggestion must emanate from the ruler. It will firmly knit together and unite all of their subjects. I suppose you could supplement that idea rather than subjects. It will firmly knit together and unite everyone that they're interacting with. Without this central force, all external unity is only deception and breaks down at the decisive moment. So this this asks a question essentially: am I this ruler who holds all elements together by the power of my personality? And am I strong enough in character to influence everyone who is interacting with me? If I am, then I am as I need to be. But that seems like a very tall order to me. To be able to have this strong power of suggestion emanating from within me that would always work in the positive direction, so that those in my circle would always be influenced in ways that are holding the elements together by the power of my personality. So it's essentially asking a question: are you up to this level? And I'd have to say no, I don't think I am. I don't know if I would actually want to have that type of responsibility either, to knit together and unite all of these people based on the inner being's power of emanation. I don't know if I have that type of central force that's completely clear in that respect. And I think because of this, the idea of interacting with this particular woman seems to be less and less feasible and sustainable, because I really don't think that being this type of a ruler who holds all these elements together by the power of my personality is a job I'm actually up for, nor would I want to have to sustain. So any external unity, it also goes on to say, that does not have this central force working upon it is only deception and will break down at the decisive moment. So this could definitely indicate that the interaction could move in that direction. It could also indicate that if a person is able to hold elements together by the power of this emanating personality that has the influence of suggestion and so forth, and the emanation from the inner being, it could work in that direction of holding things together. But I think that's a very tall order for someone to actually try to attain. So the second hexagram, number 64. So it's interesting, in number 63, after completion, is followed by number 64, before completion, two sides of the same coin. I stand corrected. It is not the second hexagram 64. The second hexagram is number 52. 1 second, please. Number 52, keeping still mountain. This is a doubling of the mountain trigram, mountain on top and mountain on the bottom, the youngest son of heaven and earth. The male principle is at the top, which is the yang line at the top of each of the trigrams, because it strives upward by nature. And the female principle is below, since the direction of its movement is downward. Thus there is rest, because the movement has come to its normal end. So this indicates the idea of rest rather than movement. In its application to humanity, the hexagram turns upon the problem of achieving a quiet heart. It is very difficult to bring quiet to the heart. While Buddhism strives for rest through an ebbing away of all movement in nirvana, the Book of Changes holds that rest is merely a state of polarity that always has movement as its complement. So two sides of the same coin, rest on one side and movement on the other, is what the I Ching is saying. Possibly the words of this text embody directions to the practice of yoga. The judgment, keeping still, keeping his back still so that he no longer feels his body. He goes into his courtyard and does not see his people. No blame. True quiet means keeping still when the time has come to keep still, and going forward when the time has come to go forward. And in this way, rest and movement are in agreement with the demands of the time, and thus there is light in life. This hexagram signifies the end and the beginning of all movement. The back is named because in the back are located all the nerve fibers that regulate movement. If the movement of these spinal nerves is brought to a standstill, the ego, with its restlessness, disappears as it were. When a person has thus become calm, they may turn to the outside world. This person no longer sees in the outside world the struggle and tumult of individual beings, and therefore has that true peace of mind which is needed for understanding the great laws of the universe and for acting in harmony with those laws. Whoever acts from these deep levels makes no mistakes. So this, of course, talks about the idea of rest, keeping still, going within, meditating. Certainly this has a very contemplative feeling to it, and the idea of keeping still so that the spinal nerves are not activated, and so your ego can become calm. And if you can do so, you can look at the outside world or your interactions with others, whatever particular situations that you find yourself in, and you will have true peace of mind, which is needed to understand how to proceed. And if you can do this, if you can go within and attain and allow this true peace of mind, then whatever actions that you take will come from these deep levels and you will make no mistakes. So this is good encouragement to go within and to consider the ideas that have previously been presented, gathering together, or excuse me, not gathering together, but Inner Truth certainly had a lot of ideas that resonated with me in terms of the tendency toward placing too much emphasis upon the interaction with others for my well-being, and not placing enough emphasis upon establishing my own inner strength and center of gravity. Now here, this also continues in that same vein from a different perspective, the other side of the coin, in keeping still the mountain, being like the mountain, strong and still, and filled with great wisdom and peace of mind, so that the actions, whatever they may be, to move forward or to not move forward with this particular person, is going to come from the deepest levels, and the mistakes will not be present therefore. The image, mountains standing close together, the image of keeping still. Thus, the superior person does not permit their thoughts to go beyond their situation. The heart thinks constantly, and this cannot be changed, but the movements of the heart, that is, a person's thoughts, should restrict themselves to the immediate situation. All thinking that goes beyond this only makes the heart pained or sore or suffer. So this talks about the idea of being in the moment, essentially, and not going beyond your current situation with your thoughts, and restricting yourself to the particular immediate situation. It's not that you have to stop your thoughts, because the heart thinks constantly. This can't be changed. But the movements of the heart, meaning going way into the past or way into the future, oh, would this work? Diddly diddly, would this be a good thing? And so forth and so on. This needs to be curbed and restricted so that the inner peace and the wisdom and the guidance and the counsel can come through. And so a person does not exhaust themselves with living out of the particular present moment situation and exhausting their forces. So to wrap up, for me, with these two different readings from video number 77 and this video number 78, gathering together at the beginning definitely implied a lot of possibility for the magnetic attraction and the goodness and the idea of secret forces being at work behind the scenes to bring two people together, or an alliance together that is destined to be together. I took a very hopeful message from this, and then also before completion moved me in a little bit more different reflective consideration in terms of whether or not the elements are in relation with each other. Fire on top of water. Am I the young fox who plunges ahead boldly across the ice and gets wet? Or am I the old fox that chooses the spots to walk on the ice very cautiously and carefully? Am I having enough deliberation, enough caution, and being careful before moving ahead with this particular person? Then the next hexagram, Inner Truth, as already mentioned in this previous description, really nailed the idea of the importance of establishing that inner strength and not being in an interaction with someone where I would be feeling obsessed and feeling my inner truth and my inner peace ebbing away, because the center of my strength, or the center of my gravity, essentially, it would not be within myself, but within the interaction, the dynamics of that particular interaction with this person, which does not feel like a positive situation whatsoever. And then finally, the keeping still mountain. For me, I take it to mean that it doesn't necessarily put a stop sign on anything. It's all up for subjective interpretation. But I think the idea of keeping still and not moving forward for me is what I take from it. And not that there couldn't be a possibility in the future of reaching out to this person. There could be. But until I can become stronger with my center of gravity within myself, rather than affixing it to an interaction with another human being or an external situation that is well beyond my control, I think it's probably best for me to contemplate, go within, meditate, and allow that inner center of gravity to develop stronger and stronger. It's a possibility that through this process of developing that inner strength and that center of gravity, I could reach out to this person and it could be successful. But again, it's all open to interpretation, and the proof is in the interaction. This is about where I think I need to get to with this whole reading. It's been a long one. This is the longest reading I've ever done, and I hope that it's been informative for you and your particular situation that you find yourself in. I've got to believe that there are thoughts in this particular reading that could resonate and contribute to your own process of where you're at in terms of your interactions with others, whether or not you're moving forward toward someone or holding back. And if you're in a relationship, how are you cultivating that inner strength? Are you cautious? Are you like the old fox? Or are you just plunging ahead boldly? And all the other ideas expressed, which I won't enumerate now. If you'd like to listen to this reading again, I think it could be very valuable. Jot down some of the ideas that you find valuable and try to incorporate those into your own experience. I hope this has been good for you. Thanks for tuning in, and take care.